What's going on, guys? It's me with another episode of Through My Lens. I'm doing this in a little difference because the connection was bad. I'll be talking to Clifford Ryan from Syracuse, New York. This is a video interview. It's only part one of a two-part interview. The second part, I'll be heading to Syracuse so we can actually do a one-on-one talk and do some pictures. Clifford Ryan is the founder of OGs Against Violence. Um, Clifford has worked in his community for years, and then unfortunately, he lost his son to gun violence. I'm not going to get too deep into it. I just wanted to let you all know that the connection is bad, the video is bad, but the sound is there, and it's very important. So before we get to that video, I'm going to roll this intro.
So, name is Ryan, born and
Okay.
raised in the city of Syracuse, 61 years old, and I've worked pretty much all of my life here in the city of Syracuse with a small stint in Binghamton, New York. But the majority of my work life is based here in the city of Syracuse. Um, I've been an advocate for over 20 years, with 9 of it being a non for profit organization called OGs. So, in the beginning, the way that I got involved with advocating, I've always, as I stated earlier, I've always spoke out against, the gun violence and using guns. Um, but on July 22nd of 1999, I had a 17-year-old son shot and killed, and his name was Duriel Lamar Ryan, and he was killed in a brutal way. He was shot by an older gentleman who had ties to the family, and um, he shot my son down in cold blood on the corner of Newell and Cannon Street, which is the area that my son hung at, and which was a hotbed area for gun violence and gang activity. The uh, quote unquote gang for that area was called the Brighton Brigade.
Okay.
And so between 1999 and 2015, I was back and forth between Syracuse and Binghamton, supporting, the different organizations who were combating the gun violence. Whenever called upon, I would come and support, those organizations. Fast forward to 2015, um, which is when I returned to Syracuse after a small stint in Binghamton, New York. I returned to Syracuse and started my own non for profit organization called OGs Against Violence.
Okay.
And that acronym is Our Generation Against the Violence. And I started the organization because we needed a boots on the ground approach to reaching out to the young people. We
Yeah.
had several organizations that were doing prevention and intervention. They were reaching out to all of the good kids and different things like that, but no one had the courage to go out into the community and engage these shooters in our community.
Right.
Well, I came along and I got the heart of a lion. So I began going out with a little small sign that I made out of a cardboard box that said OGs Against Violence. And I began walking around with that sign as an identifier for them to know who I was. I'm well known in the city because I grew up on every side of town,
Right.
north, south, east, and west. So they couldn't box me in. So
Mhm.
because I'm an OG on every side of town. So I started off by serving notice that I was going to be coming out, reaching out to the different areas, the different, individuals in the area, and they already knew who I was. So that respect rapport has been established and had got established from that aspect. So I began stopping shootings and stabbings. And when I say that to you, I actually physically stopped shootings and stabbings and
Wow.
fights. To give you an idea on what that looks like, I stopped 44 shootings,
Wow.
300, 320 stabbings, and 1,096 fights to be exact.
Wow.
Um, and it's well documented um, uh, uh, through those actions um, that I was able to do that, but for a number of reasons. But the main reason was the respect rapport that I had established within the community.
Right.
So whenever I was around and something like that was about to take place, I was able to talk those individuals out of pulling that trigger or using that knife and break up those fights. To include brawls that could have resulted in the use of a gun or knife.
Right.
So also, I took the time to train myself in that regard. I took several trainings here in the
Mhm.
city of Syracuse. And I'm gonna just give you a list because I had prepared. First, I became a member of Citizens Review Board, which is a watchdog organization who polices the police when they do misconduct
Okay.
here in the city of Syracuse, and also I was trained in the Know Your Rights presentation. I'm also trained in the Nourishing Leadership professional board membership training, which allows me to sit on any board here in the city of Syracuse because I'm trained professionally in that regard. I'm trained in Onondaga County mental health first aid,
Nice.
certified. Um, Toastmasters professional presentation training, which allows me to do professional presentations. I also took the Syracuse, New York Citizens Police Academy training. Um, and what that training encompasses is they take you inside what police officers training encompasses as far as what their duties are as the police department.
Right.
I'm also trained in alternatives to violence, and that's a unique conflict resolution training because
Yeah,
that
that's
com that's out of the prison system. That's out of corrections. It's
mm,
called AVP,
okay.
alternative to violence, and it started in prison. And
Wow.
so individuals who have gotten out of prison started the training out here in society. So I took that training and I'm certified in that. Peacemakers training is a mediation training. And what that does is it teaches you how to mediate situations that could turn into violence by having what we call a peace circle. And it was
Okay.
started by the um, Native Americans, if you will, who taught what you call peace circles. They had what you call peace circles. So that peacemakers was modified um, based on that aspect. I've also supported the city, Syracuse City School District, the
Okay.
community centers, the Boys and Girls Clubs. several community outreach programs I've worked for. I worked for a place, organization called FACES, which is a HIV awareness training. I also spearheaded a training for the Save Our Youth outreach program here
Wow.
in the city of Syracuse through the Southwest Community Connections Community Center, and conducted several community outreach services in the community, doing positive mentoring with the youth in the city of Syracuse, conducting community walks for the citizens of the community to take back their neighborhoods with the on the grounds with OG walks. And what we would do with that is we would gather the signs and we would go walk. Whenever there was a shooting in
Right.
our community, we'd go directly to that area right away and walk in that area to take back that area from that activity. And it worked very well, to include having shooters engage the community work, the community aspect, to reach out,
Right.
and talk about some of the things that they're facing, and the mental health challenges like you spoke of,
Now
um,
that's
um,
that's
as far as that.
right. Now that's something I want to ask you about because not to put anyone's name or anything out there. As talking to
Hmm.
these young people, men,
Hmm.
women, whatever, and
Hmm.
understanding them from their point of view, how much do you think a lot of this stuff comes from just generational curses or the mental health aspect in the community?
Most of it, I would say at least 90% of it
Wow.
comes from, the generational aspect. You have individuals who came under that um aspect of it, from one generation to another. And to give you an example of what that looks like,
Hmm.
we have kids here in the city of Syracuse who were invoking names of individuals that they never knew or never met. But being that that individual was tied to that area, they would use that individual name, as a relator to the area. In other
Wow.
words, to give you an example of what that looks like, they might say word to face.
Right.
Well, he was an individual who lived in a certain area.
Okay.
And the younger kids, even though they didn't know him, they would identify themselves with that individual.
Wow.
That individual was shot and killed. So
Mhm.
he's a hero in that area where
Right.
he was shot and killed. So the stories were passed on from generation to generation.
Right.
And what happened, things got a little bit twisted up with the youth,
Hmm.
because we're from the old school, you and
Right.
we used to use our hands. We
Right.
we fought a good fight, and we lived,
Right.
to
Another
push
day.
forward and to
Yes.
resolve our beef.
Right.
But that culture changed, and kids became a little bit more violent prone, and
Hmm.
with the influx of guns that are coming into the community,
Right.
uh, 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 it got out of control, which is
Right.
where it's at right now. And the
Right.
mental health aspects of it is very, very serious, because a lot of kids are facing, a lot of trauma,
Hmm.
from the experiences of losing friends and
Hmm.
lost loved ones to the gun violence, let alone, just from the experience of going through the things in the Black community as
Right.
a whole, with the poverty and different things like that right there. So all of those things play a role in why we're dealing with and facing some of the things that we're facing here in the city of
Right.
Syracuse, as well as all across the nation.
Yeah.
As well, because you're in Buffalo, and
Right.
Buffalo has a high volume of gun violence.
Right. But see,
That's double.
Right.
you know.
Let me show you something which I was talking about just the other day. I've done a lot of
Hmm.
traveling, and if you go by social media, this country
Hmm.
is horrible. But I tell people all the time, I really didn't see it that much. Now I've been in Buffalo, and I know the crime rate here is high, and I don't
Hmm.
really get to see it, so a lot of people don't pay attention to it, even though we know it's there. My thing is,
Hmm.
everybody that I talk to says that all of this starts with mental health. And it's sad
Hmm.
that in our community, still, with all the knowledge we have, we're still ashamed to talk about mental health, not knowing that if we just start talking about it,
Hmm.
a lot of this will stop.
That's my approach. That's my
Right.
approach. And I've
Yeah.
taken and used that approach to reach out to individuals who were actually standing there with that firearm out, getting ready to pull that trigger.
Right.
Okay. How do you
Right.
stop an individual who has that firearm out, getting ready to pull that trigger? Well, you have to take time to unpack the ramifications of the situation
Hmm.
and make that individual understand that your actions are going to have ramifications that are going to affect you for the rest of your life.
Right.
And to give you an example of what that looks like, two individuals were getting ready to shoot each other, and they both had pistols out.
Hmm.
And I stepped in between them, and all I had was my sign that say "OGs against violence."
Hmm.
And so I put the signs up so that they couldn't get a target on each other. But they were still going back and forth saying, I'll pop you.
Right.
And the other individual was saying, I'll pop you. And then one of the individuals got a little frustrated and he said to me, he said, "Oh, gee, if you don't get out of my way, I'll put a bullet in you." So now you're in a position on how you're going to handle that.
Right.
Are you going to meet his aggression with aggression,
Hmm.
or are you going to stay calm and, you know, handle the situation properly, which is what I did, being that
Hmm.
I was trained first of all to know how to handle the situation. And I just, non-aggressively spoke to the young man in a way that calmed him down and that made him see that I wasn't trying, to cause any problems. And
Right.
my first words to him was, "Excuse me, young man, I don't mean no disrespect."
Right.
Right. And when I said that, that kind of resonated with him because he respected me in that regard because he
Right.
knew who I was and he knew what I represent. He knew why I got in between them. And when I
Right.
said, "Excuse me, young man, I don't mean no disrespect,
Right.
but I'm trying to stop you from doing something that's going to affect your life for the rest of your life." And I pointed to everybody who was out there and I said, "Look around you right now.
Hmm.
Okay. You're in a situation where you're about to either take a life or lose your life. And then the ramifications that it's going to have on your family, as well as the other person's family, as well as the community, is going to be something that you may not be prepared for."
Right.
And then, I just began talking to them about and unpacking what they were actually arguing over. And what they
Mhm.
were arguing over was, one person said that thing I told you earlier,
Right.
word to somebody, and the
Right.
other individual got mad at that. And then
Right.
that argument escalated into them two getting ready. And so I was able to de-escalate that situation
Right.
using mental health tactics as well as conflict resolution.
Hmm.
Talked to them and mediated that situation so that they wouldn't shoot each other. And they
Right.
both kind of went back to their neutral corners
Hmm.
and it diffused the situation. I never try to take the firearm from anybody or anything like that right
Hmm.
there. My goal is to stop the shooting and then later on, try to talk them individuals,
Right.
into, getting rid of that because of what the ramifications are going to be, you
Right.
know. And so 44 times I had situations where I talked to individuals out of pulling that trigger. Now you're a man just like I am,
Right.
so you know man one on one just like I do.
Right.
You can talk a person out of doing something, if you approach it right.
Yeah.
And my approach was right. Same
Right.
thing with the stabbings. Okay.
Mm.
Same thing with the fight. When you have individuals getting ready to fight, you have the two main individuals who are getting ready to fight, and the rest are there to support those individuals.
Right.
Okay. If you can stop those two individuals from fighting, you can
Mhm.
stop a brawl. Okay. And
Yeah.
there's been times when I was able to stop it from becoming a brawl, and there was times when I was able to stop the brawl from happening by
Right.
stopping the individuals from fighting. Okay.
Hmm.
Once again, everyone knows who I'm the OG against violence. Everyone knows that when I come around, it's almost embarrassing for them to do the violence in front of me because
Right.
of what I stand for and what I represent.
Right.
So you'll hear us, you know, movie. You're not gonna let nobody fight. You know he gonna try to stop us. You know that hush whisper, "Here come OG,"
Right.
resonates throughout the crowd, and then you'll hear somebody say, "Yeah, you're lucky OG. You're lucky OG came on the scene because I would have done this and I would have done that."
Right.
And I appreciated that respect,
Hmm.
and I've done so many positive things in the community, bro. You know what I mean? Just
Hmm.
trying to help save lives and have the strongest impact that I can in the
Now,
community in that
right.
regard.
Now let's talk about that because I know, and even me, and and this is just the beginning of my journey. I just really got to the
Hmm.
point to where I figured out how I want to move forward in my nonprofit and stuff. But to
Hmm.
people like us who sitting in our communities and they see the issue and they see what they need to do, what do you say to them to get them out there and start being the change?
Well, you gotta encourage them to step up and to try to make a difference.
Hmm.
And that's not easy to do because a lot of people don't have that courage. A
Right.
lot of people, you know, are afraid, if you
Hmm.
will. You got OGs that were afraid,
Right.
dudes who, you know what I'm saying, that been to penitentiary before and came home. They didn't know how to react towards the individuals because the culture changed.
Right.
So some individuals didn't understand how to approach that. And I served as an example on how to approach that. You can't meet the aggression with aggression. So let's say an individual just came home from doing life. He done been
Right.
locked up. He been to gladiator school. He done did 25 years. He done fought, in the penitentiary and all of that right there. Well, when you come home, it's a different culture. And there's been individuals who came home with that aggression and end up losing their lives. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
There it is, an individual just came home and he thinks, "Oh, I'm so and so. I just got finished doing 25 years, young man. I'll do this or I'll do that to you." And that young person, end up taking that individual's life. You see what I'm
So,
saying? And he wasn't prepared or
mhm,
make his adjustment in that
okay.
regard. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Right.
So, yeah.
That's what. Okay. So, I'm definitely want to do a part two to this because I want me and you to meet face to face. I'm gonna have to get up
Okay.
where you at. But
Absolutely.
I'm gonna
Absolutely.
uh
Absolutely.
to um to the community out there. What can you say to help to the people watching that don't know you? What can you say to them to encourage
Hmm.
them to focus on their mental health and to move forward and to better in their life?
So, um, what you have to do is take the time to address the issue that we're facing, that you as an individual might be facing.
Hmm.
And it's very important to understand what that looks like. Okay.
Hmm.
If you're facing mental health challenges, the sooner you address, what you're facing as far as mental health is concerned, the
Hmm.
sooner you can begin to turn around that aspect of it. And as far as individuals out there, you know, you got to have that courage. You got to want change. You got to want to be that difference maker. You got to want to uh, 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 make some changes in your community. And it's so important that we understand why boots on the ground is important,
Okay.
because we can tap into the good kids all day long. We can
Right.
tap into the good all day long, but
Right.
there's an element there that we have to face straight on, and that's the element. We
Right.
have to approach individuals who live that life, and who are approachable if you approach them in the right way.
All right. Well, man, I want to thank you again. I'm gonna do my intro and put your
Hmm.
website and stuff up. I want to let everybody know while you're on here that
Okay.
I appreciate what you're doing in your community and hope that it moves
Thank
forward
you.
into other communities. And I'll be getting in touch with you, and we'll set up for part 2 of this. And hopefully, we can work together.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. Look forward to it.
All right. Thank you again, man, for your time. All
All right,
right.
brother.
You have a good
All
evening.
right. Appreciate you.
All right.